Part 5. Humanity strikes back the moment the hidden control activated. Everything changed. A deep sound rolled through the arena floor like something buried beneath the stone had woken up. The energy lines across Karvek's armor stopped glowing their usual dark color and shifted to something brighter, colder, almost white. The air around him tightened. Heat moved outward from his body in visible waves. Sand near his boots began to lift and drift without wind. The crowd felt it in their chests before they understood it. With their eyes, Karvek rose from one knee, slowly, deliberately, like something ancient and terrible. Standing up from a long sleep, his red eye no longer flickered. It burned steady and hard like a coal pushed past its limit. The black blade in his hand vibrated at a frequency that made nearby metal hum in response. Veins stood dark against his neck and arms. His breathing deepened into something almost mechanical. He looked less like a fighter now. He looked like a weapon that had decided to move on its own. The announcer above said nothing. The crowd said nothing. Even the arena seemed to hold itself still. Karvek rolled his shoulders once, and the armor plates shifted and locked into new positions around him. A low warning tone came from somewhere inside the barrier systems. Automated sensors in the arena walls began scanning his energy output. Numbers appeared on a side screen that most of the crowd did not understand. The old commander in the upper level understood them perfectly. He turned away from the railing and spoke quickly to the officer beside him. "Those readings," he said quietly. "That system was banned from sanctioned combat 14 years ago." The officer stared at the screen. "Then why is it active?" The old commander looked back at the arena floor with tight eyes. "Because he is not fighting for sport anymore." Below, Karvek pointed the blade at Elias. "I was going to make this fast," Karvek said. Out of respect for the effort, he took one step forward and the sand scorched black beneath his boot. "Oh, I am going to make it last." Kaya stood across the sand and watched him. His left side still ached from the earlier collision. His shoulder wound had slowed, but not stopped. 2 tears in his coat showed the thin armor plates beneath. One of them cracked from the barrier impact. He had taken real damage. Anyone watching could see it, but his feet were set, his hands were raised, and his eyes were locked on Karvek with the kind of focus that did not come from training alone. It came from something older and harder. Something built over years of loss and decision and survival in places where survival was never guaranteed. Karvek tacked. The speed was different. Now, faster than before. Heavier. Each strike carried a force that bent the air around it. The black blade came in combinations that no single fighter should have been able to produce at that pace. Elias moved, but it was harder. The first strike he redirected, using Karvek's momentum against him. The second he slipped under, taking a glancing hit across his upper arm that cracked one of the hidden armor plates completely. The third came too fast, and Elias caught it on both forearms crossed in front of him. The force drove him back 3 full steps. His boots cut furrows through the sand. His arms burned from the block. The crowd saw it, and noise rose again. But it was not celebration. It was tension stretched to breaking point. They were watching something they had no word for. Not a slaughter, not a performance, something real. Karvek pressed harder. He drove Elias across the arena with relentless combinations, not giving him space to reset, not giving him a second to breathe. Every time Elias moved, Karvek cut off the angle. Every time Elias tried to get inside the reach of the blade, Karvek shifted and pushed him back out with raw power. He was fighting smarter now. Angry? Yes, but controlled in his anger. Using the enhanced system to think faster, move faster, press harder without losing form. Elias caught another hit at the ribs, then one at the thigh. then a backhand strike across the shoulder that spun him halfway around. He went down to one knee. The crowd. Rose Karvik stopped a few steps away, breathing hard, watching. "Stay down," he said. "It will be easier." Elias's head dropped for a moment. 1 second, 2. The arena waited. Then something happened that no one expected. He started to speak, not to Karvik, not to the crowd. His voice was low, almost private. But the arena was quiet enough that the closest microphones caught fragments of it and sent them to the speakers above names. He was saying names, quiet, steady, one after another, not famous names, not warrior names, ordinary names, a woman's name, a child's name, an old man's name, names that meant nothing to anyone in the arena. But they meant everything to him. The old commander above gripped the railing with both hands. He recognized one of the names from New Selene, from the report he had read 3 years ago. In a closed room with the lights turned low and the door locked, Elias said the last name. Then he stood up, not with a roar, not with dramatic fury. He simply rose, reset his footing, and raised his hands again. Something was different. The crowd felt it before they saw it. The way he stood had changed. The way his weight sat had changed. The movement in his shoulders had changed. He was no longer the man who had walked into the arena an hour ago, with a dusty coat and quiet eyes. He was still quiet, but now the quiet was something else. Entirely, Karvik saw it, and something instinctive moved through him. Not recognition, warning, he attacked. Again, fast and hard. Blade leading Elias moved inside it, not around it. Inside it, his hand found the gap at Karvik's elbow joint and pushed at exactly the right angle. The blade arm bent wrong. A sharp sound came from the armor. Karvik grunted and tried to recover, but Elias was already at his side, striking twice. At the rib plate. Once at the back of the knee, Karvik's leg buckled. Elias hit him across the jaw, from below, then drove his elbow into the back of the giant. Alien's neck with everything left in his body. Karvik hit the sand face first. The sound of it echoed, crossed the entire arena. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The champion lay still in the black sand. The blade fallen from his hand. The enhanced armor. Still glowing, but flickering now. Unsteady. Elias stood over him, breathing hard. Bleeding cracked armor under a torn coat. But standing, always standing. Then he looked up at the crowd for the first time since the fight began. Not with anger, not with pride, with something quiet and certain that carried. Across every screen in the arena, a message without words. This is what humans do. We fall. We remember why we got up. And then we finish it above. The old commander let out a long breath. The younger officer beside him said nothing for a long moment. Then quietly, "Is it over?" The old commander watched Elias standing on the sand below, watched Karvik's hand begin to move slowly in the black sand, and answered in a low, careful voice. "No." He pointed to a section of the arena wall where a hidden panel had begun to slide open in the shadows. "It is just getting worse." Part 6. The last trick. The panel in the arena wall opened without sound. No announcement. No warning light. No signal to the crowd that something had changed. Just a slow mechanical slide of dark metal. And then a gap in the wall where there had been none before. Most of the crowd did not notice at first. Their eyes were on Karvik, still face down in the black sand, his armored hand pressing slowly against the ground as he tried to push himself up. The flickering energy lines across his armor made uneven, shadows on the sand around him. But the old commander had noticed, and Elias noticed too. He turned his head toward the gap in the wall before anything came through it. Some deep instinct, built from years and places where danger never announced itself, pulled his attention there without reason. Then the drones came out. 3 of them first. Then 4 more behind. Small, fast, black as the arena floor, shaped like flattened shells with thin weapon arms folded beneath their bodies. They spread across the upper space of the arena in a pattern that was not random. It was a hunting formation. The crowd reacted immediately. Noise exploded through the stands. Some people stood up and pressed back from the railings. Others leaned forward, suddenly hungry again now that the balance had shifted. A few officials in the lower observation deck began speaking rapidly into communication devices. None of it mattered inside the barrier. Elias was already moving. He crossed the sand in a low, fast run, putting the arena wall at his back so the drones could not surround him completely. His eyes tracked each one separately. 7 total. Weapon arms still folded. Not firing yet, waiting for a command. Karvik had reached his knees. Blood from his face dripped dark spots into the sand below him. One eye was swollen nearly shut. 3 of his armor plates were cracked or broken. He breathed in deep, ragged pulls that showed how much the fight had cost him. But his working eye found Elias, and he smiled. It was not the wide, theatrical smile from the beginning of the night. It was smaller, uglier. The smile of someone who had decided that winning mattered more than pride. Arena defense system, Karvik said, loud enough for the crowd to hear. Authorized by the owner of this facility. He pressed one hand to the ground and pushed himself upright. Still within the rules of challenge law, he continued. The arena provides, the fighter survives. That is how it has always worked here. Angry? Noise moved through parts of the crowd, but other sections cheered. The announcer's voice returned above, uncertain and careful. Arena auxiliary systems have been activated. The challenge continues under extended combat law. The whole arena felt different now. Only moments ago, the crowd had been loud, cruel, hungry for an easy death. Now, a strange silence sat over the stands. It was not complete silence. People still whispered. Metal rails still shook under nervous hands. The energy barrier still gave off a low red hum. But the laughter was gone. Karvik stood in the black sand with his blade in both hands. Across from him, Elias Vane remained calm. The human's coat moved lightly in the hot arena wind. His breathing was steady. His eyes did not leave Karvik for even a second. That calmness began to spread fear in a place that loved fear only when it belonged to someone else. Karvik hated the feeling at once. He was the terror of this arena. He was the one who made others step back. He was the one who controlled the mood of the crowd. But now thousands of eyes were not looking at him with certainty. They were waiting to see if he would fail. A low growl came from deep in his throat. "You dance well," Karvik said, trying to bring confidence back into his voice. "But no one wins by running," Telius answered without emotion. "No one wins by talking." Somewhere in the stands, a few shocked voices reacted. No one spoke to Karvik like that. Not and lived. The alien champion's jaw tightened. He rushed forward again, but this time there was no show in his movement. No dramatic roar. No open attack made for the crowd. This was cleaner, faster, deadlier. He had stopped performing. Now he was trying to kill. His blade came down from above. With crushing force, Elias shifted aside. Karvik twisted in the middle of the strike and drove his elbow toward the human's face. Akalius leaned back, the armored blow missing him by an inch. Karvik followed at once with a knee toward the ribs. This time, it connected. A hard impact sounded across the arena. The crowd shouted. Elias slid back through the sand, his boots cutting to straight lines behind him. He did not fall, but the hit had been real. Karvik saw it and smiled with sudden hunger. "There," he said. "Now you remember where you are." He did not give Elias time to recover. He pressed forward with a chain of attacks, each one faster than the last. The black blade flashed high, low, then across. Elias blocked one strike with his forearm guard, turned away from another, and ducked under a third. Sparks jumped when metal brushed against hidden plating under his coat. Karvik saw that and understood armor light. Thin, hidden armor, so the traveler was not as plain as he looked. Good, Karvik thought. Better, it meant he could break more than flesh. The alien drove his shoulder forward like a charging beast. Elias twisted to the side, but not fully. The impact clipped him and sent him stumbling. Karvik finally got the opening he wanted. He raised the black blade with both hands and brought it down in a brutal strike meant to split the human where he stood. But Elias moved at the last possible second. The blade hit sand and stone, and in that tiny opening, Elias attacked. He stepped in close, too close for the great blade to matter. One hand struck Karvik's elbow. The other hit the side of his neck. Right at the gap between armor plates, it was fast. Too fast for most eyes to follow. Karvik froze for half a breath. His right arm went weak. Pain shot through his neck and down his shoulder. Then Elias hit him again. A short, lean strike to the ribs. A second strike to the center of the chest. A final blow under the jaw. Karvik staggered backward. The giant champion of the arena of death took 3 heavy steps, trying to find balance. His vision shook. The crowd gasped as one. Then something dark fell onto the sand. Blood, his blood. For a second, Karvik did not understand what he was seeing. He touched the side of his mouth and looked at his hand. Red. The arena saw it too. The giant screens above zoomed in on the blood at once. A deep wave of shock moved through the stands. Karvik had been hit before in battle. Long ago, in wars far from this world. But here, in this arena, in front of this crowd, he had become something he had not been for years. Vulnerable Elias stood still again, not chasing him, not boasting, not smiling. That made it worse. If the human had shouted, the crowd could have hated him. If he had celebrated, Karvik could have called him arrogant. But Elias did neither, simply watched, as if this was expected, as if Karvik had already been measured and found lacking in the upper level. The old commander's face had gone pale. The younger officer beside him whispered, "Who is he?" The old commander answered quietly, never taking his eyes off the arena. "A survivor." Below, Karvik straightened his back. Rage burned through him, hot and ugly. He wiped the blood from his mouth and bared his teeth. The crowd was no longer cheering his name. They were watching in fear and wonder. That cut deeper than the strikes. "You made me bleed," Karvik said. Elias gave a small nod. Yes, one simple word. No pride, no insult. Just truth. Karvik's red eye flared brighter. Then he reached to the side of his armor and pressed a hidden control. A sharp, metallic sound clicked through the arena. Pieces of his armor shifted. Locked plates opened. Dark lines of energy moved. Across his chest, arms and legs, the air around him seemed to grow hotter. His muscles tightened. Veins stood out under his skin. The black blade gave off a low, hungry vibration. The crowd knew what it meant. Full combat mode, a setting Karvik almost never used in public fights. A mode built for war, not entertainment. A mode that had killed trained soldiers, armored beasts, and machine hunters. Whispers spread through the stands. Some felt excited, others felt afraid. Karvik rolled his neck slowly and stepped forward. The sand burned slightly under his boots. "No more games," he said. For the first time, Elias narrowed his eyes, not in fear, in focus. The red light from the barrier reflected off both fighters as they faced each other across the black sand. One was larger, heavier, built on violence and pride. The other was silent, controlled, unreadable. Then Karvik lowered his blade and charged with the full force of a battlefield killer, and the arena understood that this was no longer a duel for glory. It had become a fight for survival. Part 4. The Monster Behind the Smile. The charge was unlike anything the arena had seen in years. Karvik moved like a war machine that had finally dropped all pretense of sport. Every step hit the sand like a hammer, the energy lines running across. His armor burned brighter with each stride. The black blade was no longer swinging for show. It came forward with the kind of force that bent metal and broke walls. The crowd rose to their feet. This was the Karvik they feared. This was the fighter that had torn through military units on 3 different border worlds. This was the creature that had left entire squads broken and silent in the dark. This was not the entertainer who smiled for cameras and played to the cheers. This was the monster behind the smile. Elias did not run. He held his ground until the very last second. Then moved with sharp precision to the left. Karvik adjusted mid-charge, something most fighters could not do at that speed, and drove his armored shoulder into Elias with brutal force. The impact was massive. Elias hit the ground and rolled hard through the black sand. He came up on one knee, breathing sharp. The hidden armor under his coat had absorbed some of the blow, but not all of it. His left side burned. His vision jumped for half a second. Karvik was already coming again. The blade came down with both hands behind it. Elias threw himself to the side, and the strike hit the arena floor so hard it cracked the stone beneath the sand. Dust rose in a cloud around them. Karvik pulled the blade free and swung sideways. Elias blocked with his forearm, and the force threw him backward into the energy barrier. Red light flashed where his body touched it. Pain cracked through his back like a whip. He dropped to one knee again, gritting his teeth. The crowd screamed. Karvik walked forward slowly this time. He had all the space in the world. The barrier was behind the human. There was nowhere left to move. Still calm, Karvik asked. His voice carried across the arena with cold amusement, but as he stepped closer, something in the air shifted. Without warning, Karvik spoke again. But this time he was not performing for the crowd. He was speaking to the human alone. "I know what you think of me," he said quietly. "You came here with a purpose. You think this is justice." Elias looked up from one knee but said nothing. Karvik's red eye narrowed. "I have killed 41 humans in this arena," he said. "And long before this arena, I hunted them in the field. On Miran 4, on the Dust Corridor, on New Selene." The names landed in the air like stones dropped into still water. Something changed in Elias's face. Not anger, recognition. Karvik noticed it and smiled slowly. "You know those places," the alien said. "You have been to at least one of them. I can see it." He crouched down to eye level with the human, blade resting across his knee. "Tell me, Elias Fane, who did you lose?" The question was cruel and deliberate. A weapon made of words rather than metal. The arena grew very quiet above in the military section. The old commander closed his eyes briefly, as if the names Karvik had spoken meant something to him too. On New Selene 3 years ago, an entire human outpost had gone silent overnight. The official report listed the cause as an equipment failure, a cover story. The real answer was never made public, but some people knew, and some of those people had never stopped looking for the one responsible. Elias rose slowly to his feet. His left side still ached. His back still burned from the barrier. Blood had started to show through a small tear in his coat at the shoulder, but his hands were steady. His eyes were clear. He looked. The arena of death was the loudest place on the planet Var. It stood in the center of the capital city like a black mountain made of metal and stone. Bright lights burned around its walls. Huge screens floated in the air above it. They showed old battles, broken bodies, and the face of the champion everyone had come to see. Inside, the crowd was wild. Thousands of alien voices filled the air. They stomped their feet. They struck the metal rails with their claws and weapons. The sound rolled through the arena like thunder. They had not come for sport alone. They had come to watch fear. They had come to watch death. At the center of the arena floor stood a single warrior. He was tall, broad, and covered in dark armor made from the shells of beasts he had killed. Long scars crossed his arms and neck. One red eye glowed brighter than the other. Across his back rested a heavy blade, black and cruel, with marks cut into the metal. Each mark stood for a kill. Many of those marks were human. His name was Karvik. Across many systems, people knew that name. Some spoke it with respect. Others spoke it with fear. He was not only a fighter. He was a hunter. He had built his fame by killing strong enemies in public battles. But what made the crowd love him most was his hatred for humans. Karvik lifted both arms, and the arena exploded with cheers. He smiled slowly, enjoying every sound. On the giant screens above, his old victories played again. In one clip, he dragged a human soldier across the sand. In another, he stood over two fallen fighters from a human border world. Every time a human appeared on the screen, the crowd roared louder. Karvik waited until the noise dropped just enough. Then he spoke. His voice was deep and hard, and speakers carried it to every corner of the arena. "Look at them," he said, pointing to the screens. "Humans, they talk big. They stand tall. They dream of honor. But when the blood starts to fall, they break like dry bone." The crowd laughed. Karvik walked in a slow circle across the arena floor. "I have hunted humans on war moons, in broken cities, and in the dark between stars," he said. "Every time they die the same way. Loud at first, brave for a moment, then weak, then dead." More laughter. In the front rows, wealthy nobles leaned forward with cruel smiles. Young fighters shouted his name. Soldiers raised flags with his symbol on them. Karvik loved all of it. He stopped walking and looked up at the highest seats. "They say humans are dangerous," he said. "They say humans are stubborn, hard to kill, hard to scare." He laughed, and the crowd joined him. "I say humans are prey." The arena shook with cheers. Karvek pulled the great black blade from his back and raised it high over his head. The lights hit the old bloodstains still dark on the metal. "This blade has tasted human blood on 12 worlds," he shouted. "I have ended human warriors, human mercenaries, human officers, and human champions. Not one of them left this arena standing." The giant screens now showed numbers beside his image. Victories, executions, human kills. The crowd chanted his name. "Karvik, Karvik." He stood still, breathing in their praise. To him, this was better than battle. This was power. This was proof that fear had a face, and his face was the one they had come to worship. Then he lowered the blade and pointed it toward one section of the arena where off-world visitors sat behind energy shields. Among them were traders, mercenaries, diplomats, and a few silent figures wearing plain travel cloaks. "Tonight," Karvik said, "I offer the old challenge again." His red eye narrowed. "Is there any human here with enough courage to face me?" The question rolled through the arena for the first time that night. The crowd became quiet. It was not true silence. Thousands still breathed. Metal still hummed. Screens still flickered. But the cheering stopped. Everyone looked toward the visitor section. Some aliens laughed softly. Others waited with sharp interest. A few turned their heads, hoping to see a human stand up just so they could watch another death. No one moved. Karvik smiled. "Yes," he said, his voice full of mock pity. "That is what I thought." He began to turn away. Then a voice came from the back of the visitor section. "I accept." The words were not loud, but they cut through the arena more sharply than any blade. Karvik stopped. The crowd froze. Even the announcers said nothing. For one strange second, the whole arena of death seemed to hold its breath. Heads turned. In the last row of the visitor section, a single figure stood up. The person wore no bright armor, no war banner, no rich colors. Just a dark travel coat, dusty boots, and simple gloves. The hood was pulled low, hiding most of the face. A human. Some in the crowd laughed at once. Others looked confused. That was the champion. That was the one who answered. Karvik's smile returned. Wider than before, he spread his arms as if the night had just given him a gift. "A human," he called out. "Good. Very good. Come down then. Let all of Varkos watch." The human did not answer. He started walking step by step. Calm and steady, he moved down the long metal stairs toward the arena floor. No hurry. No fear. No wasted motion. The crowd watched closely now. The laughter began to weaken. There was something strange about the way the human walked. Not proud, not angry, just certain. Karvik noticed it too for the first time that night. A small line formed between his eyes. The gates to the arena floor opened with a deep mechanical sound. The human entered the sand, and the crowd, once hungry for an easy death, began to feel that something was wrong. The human stood on the arena floor as if he belonged there. Bright white lights fell from above and covered the black sand around him. On the giant screens, his image appeared from every angle. The whole arena could see him now. He was not large. He was not wearing heavy armor. He did not carry a huge gun or some shining energy weapon. He looked too simple for this place. That made the crowd laugh again. From the high seats, voices shouted insults in many languages. "Too small. He will die in one hit." Another weak human. Karvik walked forward with a cruel smile. His heavy boots pressed deep marks into the sand. The great black blade rested over one shoulder as if it weighed nothing at all. "This is what they send now," Karvik said, loud enough for the whole arena to hear. A tired traveler. More laughter rolled through the stands. The human stopped a few steps away. He did not react to the noise. He did not look at the crowd. His eyes stayed on Karvik. That was the first strange thing. Most fighters looked around when they entered the arena of death. They looked at the lights, the giant screens, the thousands of faces, the bloodstains and the sand. They felt the pressure. They showed fear, anger, or pride. This human showed nothing. He stood straight, calm, and still. Karvik slowly lowered his blade and studied him. The human's coat was plain and dark. There was no symbol on it, no rank mark, no military badge. His boots were worn but strong. His hands were covered by old combat gloves. On one side of his neck, just above the collar, there was a thin scar. The alien champion frowned for a moment. A scar like that did not come from a simple life. Still, Karvik laughed. "What is your name, human?" he asked. The human answered, in a quiet voice, "Elias Vane." The name meant nothing to most of the crowd, but not to everyone. in one of the upper levels. Where military guests sat behind blue energy glass, an old alien commander suddenly went still. His eyes narrowed. He turned toward the screen and looked more carefully. Beside him, a younger officer noticed the reaction. "What is it?" the officer asked. The old commander did not answer at once. He had heard that name before, not from news reports, not from public battle records, from war briefings, from closed files, from stories told in low voices after disasters at the edge of human space. Down in the arena. Karvik spread his arms wide. "Elias Vane," he repeated. "Remember that name, all of you. It will be written tonight among the dead." The crowd cheered, but the humans still did not answer. Karvik's smile changed a little. It became tighter. He was used to fear. He was used to anger. He was used to seeing the moment when a challenger understood what was coming. But this man just stood there, breathing slowly, as if he had already accepted every possible ending. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "By challenge law, the duel may now begin. One enters, one falls." Huge metal locks slammed shut around the arena walls. Energy barriers lit up in a bright red circle. There would be no escape. Karvik lifted his blade and pointed it at the human's chest. "You still have one chance to kneel," he said. "If you do, I may kill you quickly." At last, Elias spoke again. No. Only one word. Simple, flat, certain. A few in the crowd laughed at that. Others grew quiet. The old commander above the arena leaned forward, his hands gripping the railing. Karvik rolled his shoulders and stepped into fighting position. Then die standing. Without warning, he moved. He was far too fast for his size. The black blade flashed through the air like a falling wall. It came straight for the human's neck with enough force to cut bone and armor. Together, gasps rose from the crowd. But the strike hit nothing. Elias had already moved. It was not a wild jump, not a desperate dodge. He made one clean step to the side, barely enough to avoid the blade. Sand lifted under his boot. The weapon slammed into the ground beside him with a hard metallic crash. The arena went silent for a second. Karvik ripped the blade free and swung again. Faster this time. A brutal sideways cut aimed at the ribs. Again. Elias moved. A half step back. Nothing more. The blade passed in front of his coat, so close that the cloth shifted from the force. The challenge that ended him one step back. That was all it was. A single step. Small, automatic. The kind of movement a body makes before the mind gives permission. But in the arena of death, in front of thousands of watching eyes, on the same sand where Karvik had stood undefeated for years. That one step said everything. The crowd saw it. Every screen in the arena caught it from multiple angles. And something shifted in the atmosphere of that place that could not be shifted back. Karvik felt it immediately. He stopped himself, planted his feet, raised the blade. His jaw tightened and his burning eye locked onto Elias with a fury that was no longer about sport or pride or performance. It was desperation, and desperation in a predator. It's the most dangerous thing in any arena. He came forward with everything he had left. No system enhancements now. The hidden control had burned through its cycle and left his body heavy with the cost of it. No drones, no tricks, no crowd manipulation. Just a massive, wounded, furious fighter with a black blade and the last fragments of a legend he could feel crumbling beneath his feet. His attacks were still powerful, but they were wild now. The precision was gone. The cold intelligence that had made him dangerous for years had been replaced by something raw and uncontrolled. He swung hard and wide. He roared with each strike. He threw his full weight behind every blow as if force alone could finish what? Skill was no longer delivering. Elias weathered it. He blocked what he could. He moved away from what he could not. He took 2 more hits, one to the ribs that made him grunt, and one across the forearm that split the last working armor plate there. He was running low on everything: speed, strength, protection, but not on. Will never on will. He waited, patient as stone. He had learned this long ago in a place far from any arena. In a broken field on a border world, with smoke in the air and names he would never forget. He had learned that the moment a predator stops thinking and starts feeling is the moment they leave a door open. Karvik left it open on the 7th strike, a massive overhead blow. Too much weight behind it, too much anger driving it. When Elias moved aside and it hit sand, the force pulled Karvik's whole upper body down and forward. His balance broke for 1 full second. 1 second was enough. Elias moved in close. His right hand caught the back of Karvik's blade arm and locked it. His left elbow drove hard into the side of the alien's neck, targeting the same point he had found in the early minutes of the fight. His knee came up into the ribs once, twice. Then he turned his whole body and threw Karvik, using the alien's own weight and momentum against him. Karvik left the ground. For one suspended moment, he was airborne, the black blade spinning free from his hand, his massive body turning in the arena lights. Then he hit the sand hard. Final, the black blade landed several feet away. Half buried, still, Karvik lay on his back in the center of the arena. His chest moved up and down in heavy, broken pulls. One arm reached sideways as if searching for the blade by memory. It found only sand. He tried to rise. His body refused. He tried again. The same answer, slowly. The reaching arm lowered, and the arena of death went completely silent. Not the silence of anticipation, not the silence between moments in a fight. This was the silence of an ending. The kind that settles over a place when something that seemed permanent has finally broken. Elias stood over Karvek. His coat was destroyed. His armor was in pieces. Blood marked his shoulder, his back, his forearm. He was breathing in long, controlled pulls, managing pain the way someone does when they have learned to treat pain as information rather than suffering. He looked down at the alien who had hunted humans for sport, who had spoken their names like trophies, who had laughed at their memory in front of thousands. Karvek looked up at him. The burning red eye had dimmed. What lived in it now was something Karvik had spent years manufacturing in others and never once expected to feel himself. He was afraid, genuinely, completely afraid. "Finish it," he said. His voice was low and stripped of everything it had carried. At the start of the night, no performance, no arrogance, just a wounded creature asking for an end. Elias looked at him for a long moment. Then he lowered his hands. He stepped back. The crowd stirred, confused, uncertain. Karvek blinked. "What are you doing?" he said. Elias turned away from him and looked up at the arena, at the thousands of faces watching from every level, at the giant screens carrying his image across the facility, at the military guests behind blue glass in the upper level, where an old commander stood, gripping a railing with both hands. When Elias spoke, his voice was quiet, but the arena heard every word. "We did not come here to become what hunts us," he said. He let that sit for a moment. Karvik built his legend killing humans because he believed we were beneath him. He believed we were prey. He believed that humanity was something the galaxy could use and discard and laugh about in arenas. His voice did not rise. It did not need to. He was wrong. Something moved through the crowd, not cheering. Something deeper and less comfortable than cheering. Humans do not fight for glory, Elias continued. We do not fight to be feared. We fight because we remember. We fight because the people we lost deserve a world where what happened to them cannot happen again. He paused. I did not come here to execute Karvik. I came here to answer his challenge. He said no human would ever stand against him. He was wrong about that too. He turned and looked down at Karvik one final time. He will live with that, Elias said quietly. Every day, in every arena, in every system that heard his boast and watched what happened next. He began walking toward the arena gate. Behind him, Karvik lay in the sand, alive, breathing, broken in the only way that truly mattered to a creature like him. His legend was gone, not taken by death, something worse, left alive in the wreckage of the night he had challenged the wrong human. The gate opened. Elias walked through it, and then the arena did. Something no one expected. It did not cheer for Karvik. It did not jeer at him. It did not celebrate the spectacle. It was simply quiet, the kind of quiet that follows a truth nobody expected to hear in a place built for lies and blood and easy death. In the upper level, the old commander finally released the railing. He stood straight and looked at the empty gate where Elias had disappeared. The young officer beside him spoke softly. Will anyone believe this happened? The old commander watched the screens still showing Karvik, alone in the black sand. Everyone will believe it, he said. That is the point. He picked up his coat and turned toward the exit. He did not just win a fight tonight. He sent a message to every system watching this feed. The officer followed him. What message? The old commander did not look back. That humanity answers. The screens above the arena continued playing. Not Karvik's old victories this time, just one image. Looped on every screen across the facility. A human in a torn coat walking through a gate, bleeding, damaged, undefeated, and somewhere in the darkness beyond the arena walls. In ships and stations and border outposts across many systems, beings of many kinds watched that image and felt something new move through them. Not hatred of humans, not fear of humans, something quieter and more lasting than either. Respect, because he had boasted about killing humans, and one human had accepted his